the first epic look of Christopher Nolan's behemoth of his next film, The Odyssey, has been revealed in its first trailer, and it is wonderful. And also, the shocking $1 billion move in the continuing bidding war tussle between Paramount and Warner Brothers has escalated, with Warner Brothers determined to actually win over the war. And last but not the least, the vice president of an African country has called on the film industry to increase or to be very professional and provide optimum quality in order to be able to be competitive on the global stage. We'll be covering all these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and the international scene. And thanks for joining me for this exciting episode of the Film Mandate, where we are covering major stories, heavyweight stories from the biggest block, perhaps one of the biggest blockbusters, if not the biggest, of 2026, whose trailer was released just a couple of hours, maybe a little over a day ago, and I'm talking about the Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, with even with the a roster of A-list stars in this production, to the continuing battle of Warner Brothers, one of Hollywood's perhaps last gold mine of an IP, which is between Netflix and Paramount. Even though it looks like Netflix is already in the lead, this new development has sort of thrown a little, a different twist onto this entire bidding war. And last but not the least, the vice president of Ghana, that is Her Excellency Nana Jane Agyemang, also Agyemang, about 2 weeks ago spoke at the REFA, events, that is the Regal Film Festival and Awards, which was held in Ghana, and she called on investors and filmmakers alike to aspire to the highest level of professionalism and also quality to be able to be highly competitive on the global stage. So these are the stories that we'll be covering on this very episode of the Film Monday. So we'll be delving into the very first story. And in the very first story, if you haven't watched the Odyssey, you need to do so. If you haven't watched the Odyssey, do your best to go online. I'm talking about the trailer. If you haven't watched the trailer to the Odyssey, you are doing yourself a disservice. And I can tell you of a fact that the Odyssey trailer is, gives us a glimpse as to the epicness of what we are yet to see in Christopher Nolan's next film. And as a result, countless time, every one of Christopher Nolan's film keeps increasing in epicness, if so to speak. And the Odyssey promises such a wonderful experiential events that we'll be encountering come July of next year. And just to give you an overview as to what this trailer is about, let me just read an article that was published on the Empire Online portal. And this is what it says: that the Odyssey trailer, sorry, my this thing keeps buffering a little bit. Pardon me. Yeah, so yeah, let me take it again. I don't know why this is acting up this way, but let me just refresh the page. It's acting up funny, which shouldn't be the case. Okay, so now we are back on. So the Odyssey trailer, Matt Damon takes a long journey. Where from this? Takes a long journey home in Christopher Nolan epic. If you've been if you've been to an IMAX cinema in the last few days to see Avatar Fire and Ash, you may have been treated to a 5 minute preview of for the Odyssey, the next film from Christopher Nolan. But fear not, anyone who hasn't made it out to the movies yet, the first trailer for Nolan's epic Oppenheimer follow up, a retelling of Homer's Odyssey as Odysseus makes a decade long journey home after war, facing many monsters along the way, has arrived online. This isn't the full 5 minute treat for cinema goers, but it's still mightily impressive, a tantalizing glimpse at 2026's most anticipated movie. Watch it here. So that is I'll leave the link to this article in the description below so that you can watch it yourself, watch this trailer yourself. Yep, that's a Christopher Nolan Odyssey movie. All right, gigantic globe-trotting action and mega star recast, a real sense of physical heft. All those Nolan hallmarks are here, all anchored to one of the oldest stories in recorded human history. The film stars Matt Damon as Odysseus, trying to get home to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. This actually are played by Penelope is played by Anne Hathaway, and Telemachus is played by none other than Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland. So while we also see Benny Safdie in a helmet as Agamemnon, Agamemnon, there are several major cast members not in this teaser, like Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o, Charlize Theron, and John Bernthal. Instead, the focus is on the wet and wild photography, the gigantic scope, the Trojan horse. Oh, and yes, that was a giant cyclops you saw wandering into that cave. And it continues to describe it further. I think okay, so that answers. So everything points towards the Odyssey being one of the can't miss cinematic experiences of next year. The first film shot entirely on IMAX cameras. We'll find out if it lives up to Nolan's previous work when it arrives on July 17, 2026. And honestly, it's gonna be an experience, to be in the cinema to watch what Christopher Nolan has been cooking over the past couple of months or even maybe years. So yeah, the Odyssey indeed is quite an epic feat in itself. I mean, when I say an epic feat in itself, I'm talking not just on what we will end up seeing come the time when the film is actually released, but behind the scenes, as you already know what Christopher Nolan likes to do with his films, from even Tenet, when he blew up an entire plane, a Boeing, I mean, a whole passenger plane. He blew it up in the production, and that is something else. And as I've already said, everyone, and I think Christopher Nolan's film Tenet in itself had one of the biggest sets in film history, and building he builds a whole set, and some of the things he achieved is one of the biggest in history. And just as if you haven't watched my what's it called, my trailer reaction to the Odyssey, do so. I explained it further. It looks like in every one of his films going forward, he keeps increasing the epicness or the epic nature of the production that he does, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera. I mean, in the movie as well. And it looks like this will be nothing different from the ones that he's done. If anything, he's sort of up the ante a little bit to reflect his ambitious nature in capturing such epic natures in film. And as often as possible, with less or no, visual effects. Obviously, there are visual effects captured, used to enhance certain portions of the film. But as much as possible, he tries to shoot everything as realistic as possible. And just as the article indicated, this is the film shot entirely, I mean, the first film ever shot entirely on an IMAX camera, not an IMAX certified camera, but an IMAX made camera. I've forgotten the name of the camera, but the camera was designed such that it 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 produces 30% less noise than the previous IMAX cameras that have been ever used, meaning that it will help in terms of capturing close shots of characters and then they being able to express themselves and we having that close proximity to them without the distractions. Obviously, any one of those IMAX cameras, when used to shoot, when they don't capture the noise, they are able to treat the sound one way or the other. But that also, I mean, the less noise helps the actors to be able to deliver, much better compared to the distraction that was in the previous IMAX, cameras. But as usual, with this particular film, if you watch the trailer, every every scene shows how epic this film will be. Obviously, we would have to wait. We have to temper our expectations and our excitements were a little down so that we are not disappointed. But one thing I can say for certain is that when it comes to Christopher Nolan's films, I must say that he has never disappointed, and I don't think this will be the time for him to disappoint us either in this particular pursuit of a film. So it's something that I personally am looking forward to, from the opening scene of the grave, of the how the grave have been designed in terms of the production design, where you had graves with stumps of trees, stumps in the, at the, as headstones with helmets of the fallen soldiers, placed on those stumps, to the next scene, which we saw Benny Safdie's Agamemnon character, that is the Greek, soldier, mighty warrior, facing off in, I mean, not in a fight, but in terms of, a close stare at Matt Damon is something else. And when you look at the armory that he has donned compared to that of Matt Damon, it is very intimidating. I can say for sure. But Matt, throughout the entire what's it called? Throughout the entire trailer, one of the things that they stressed on was the fact that there was a voiceover of Matt Damon saying that nothing would stop him from getting to his destination. And that is quite, powerful, because the whole story is about him returning, fulfilling a promise to his wife that he's going to return to him, to her, after the war. And even though prior to going, there is a scene that indicated, that showed that he wasn't even certain whether he will be able to return after this war, because the war between the Greeks and the Troys is something epic in nature that has never been perhaps captured in fiction like this has been done before. So it is quite mighty. It is quite, epic in nature. But it looks like at every point in time, you're going to have quite an opposition facing Matt Damon's character Odysseus, from the Agamemnon, who is perhaps the ever-present and perhaps more intimidating and expected opposition or antagonist to forces beyond, supernatural forces beyond the human scope, in terms of what's it called, the soldiers, dead soldiers rising from the ground. I don't know whether to term them as zombies or possessed, um, of dead bodies. But regardless, that also poses quite an intimidating opposition to Matt Damon's character. And then we are talking about either is it a 12-foot giant in Cyclops. Then I think one other aspect of it all that perhaps people may not have considered is the oceans itself. Matt Damon trying to get to his wife, and traveling over the ocean. I don't know. Obviously, it looks like they showed the before when they were going to the war, and then the after, and then is the after part that intrigued me the most, because when you take a look at it, I wish I had the screen to show. of the trailer. But when you look at it, it looks like the storms were not letting up, and they were beating against the ship that Matt Damon and his men were traveling in. And all these particular journey takes place within the span of a decade. So that is quite an interesting journey that is going to embark on with all this, so basically this entire story is just a hero's journey story, where at the end of the day we're going to see him triumph at the end when he finally makes it to the wife and son. So it'll be quite interesting to see, and honestly I'm looking forward to seeing the film itself. There's a whole lot that is packed in this film that you would in this teaser that you would have to watch yourself. Obviously it was shot for the IMAX screen, just as Christopher Nolan wants it, and definitely those who get opportunity to watch it on the IMAX screens will enjoy it so much. But obviously, that would also not lessen for those of us who may not be privy to have the opportunity to watch it in the IMAX due to our location. We would still nonetheless enjoy it in the regular cinemas when it is finally released. So obviously, be looking out. I'm sure there's going to drop some more trailers before finally the film is released come 17th July 2026. And I think I must say, perhaps my anticipation for this movie is even higher than Avengers Doomsday. But regardless, I would enjoy Avengers Doomsday equally as well. But let me know what you think with regards to this particular trailer. Do you think this particular trailer really, or teaser, teases us what we are yet to see in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comments section below. And yeah, I wish I could show you all the wonderful, epic posters that Christopher Nolan's that they've designed for Christopher Nolan's film. Let me see if I can bring a one or two, even though I've wrapped up the story. I felt that the posters are quite amazing, and this new one in particular that is showing Agamemnon's helmet, and man, I don't know how this is very intimidating of an enemy you're going to face, where part of his helmet is pure gold, and I don't know whether it looks more like the vertebrae of yeah, it looks like a vertebrae used as part of the helmet. That's something else, and that is Christopher Nolan for you. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what he has to offer in this film. Now, moving on, it looks like the bid for Paramount has not ceased. You may think that Netflix, having now entered into an exclusive bid for Warner Brothers, or an exclusive negotiation with Warner Brothers, that would end the battle, or the tussle for the Warner Brothers discovery. But no, that's not the case, and it looks like Paramount is hell bent on wrestling Warner Brothers Discovery from the arms of Netflix, and this indeed is quite interesting, as Warner Brothers, or sorry, as Paramount actually has assured the Warner Brothers and the stakeholders that Larry Ellison himself is guaranteeing you know, make is guaranteeing that funds are available in this acquisition, and particularly a $40 billion equity equity is being put forward for this particular offer this time around. And it's quite interesting to see. Let's just read briefly an article that captures exactly what the Paramount studios have in mind. And therefore, we go to the Hollywood Reporter, and it reads that Larry Ellison agrees to personally guarantee Paramount's bid for Warner Brothers in a revised offer. The company also agreed to raise its termination fee $5.8 billion to match Netflix, and extended the end date for the offer to January 21st. So David Ellison's Paramount has sent a revised offer to acquire Warner Brothers, one that keeps the 30%, sorry, the $30 per share price tag, but resolves many of the issues that the WBD board had with the deal. The big change: David Ellison's father and Oracle founder Larry Ellison has agreed to personally backstop the $40.4 billion in equity financing connected to the deal, and he has agreed not to revoke the Ellison family trust or adversely transfer assets in the trust while any deal is pending. So this is what he actually had to say. Paramount has repeatedly demonstrated its commitment to acquiring WBD. Our $30 per share, fully financed all-cash offer was on December 4th and continues to be the superior option to maximize value for WBD shareholders. David Ellison said in a statement Monday, because of our commitment to investment and growth, our acquisition will be superior for all WBD stakeholders. As a catalyst for greater content production, greater theatrical output, and more consumer choice, we expect the board of directors of WBD to take the necessary steps to secure this value enhancing transaction and preserve and strengthen an iconic Hollywood treasure for the future. So that is quite interesting to read. And it looks like the Ellisons are not backing down anytime soon. If you read the article further, it goes on to stress that the Ellisons are even, if they deem it fit, they would extend, what's it called? They would extend the offer date to beyond January 21st, as they have done so for now. And it looks like WBD is actually has opened up to really consider this offer. They will take a look at this offer, and therefore it looks like the exclusive negotiation by Netflix will. I mean, if they see it as a potential superior offer than Netflix, it looks like Warner Brothers, Discovery, the board, and David Zaslav are open to pay a critical look at what Warner Brothers has to offer. So that is quite an interesting discovery to find, and no pun intended though. But it looks like it's something that Warner Brothers Discovery is willing to take a look at if the offer this time around meets what they are expecting and perhaps even better than what Netflix is willing to offer. And we already know that Paramount is in for the um, entire Warner Brothers Discovery, including their news networks and all that. But Netflix is just interested in the film division and the streaming service. So it means that the 108 billion dollar offer, Paramount would have to top that up in order to be able to wrestle Warner Brothers Discovery from Netflix. That is Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters. So it'd be quite interesting to see whether that would indeed be the case. Would Warner Brothers Discovery actually, go back on their word and sort of revoke the exclusive deal, negotiation deal. And it looks like Paramount really means it, because they have matched the $5 billion offer that Netflix has offered, that should negotiations not go the way as planned, they will be willing to offer the $5 billion and exit. This time around, the Paramount Studios has offered $800 million more, almost $6 billion for such a purpose. And not just that, but just as we've seen, they're offering a $40.4 billion financing equity, which is going to be backed by Larry Ellison's own money and trust. And with the trust that they have put forward to acquire or buy Warner Brothers, they have promised not to, move any assets in the trust, and that would be quite deceptive if they should do that during this period of negotiation. And I'm sure if they are able to guarantee that all these things will be done and not to disrupt what they have in mind, then perhaps Warner Brothers will be more than willing to consider that and not allow and not just stick to what they have now with the what's it called, Netflix. So it'll be quite interesting to see how everything pans out going forward when finally the board are presented with the offer that the Ellisons are given, and if it's that lucrative, even beyond what Netflix is offering, I'm sure they are likely to consider, because I think it's more for the highest bidder rather than just finding a studio whose what's it called, values may align with what the current custodians of Warner Brothers have in mind. But obviously, it is, I'm sure through it all, the considerations of keeping Warner Brothers as a legacy studio would be something that will be in the discussion as well. It's not just going to be the money, as even Netflix, who was said to be one that would potentially sort of hack Warner Brothers and its other properties into pieces, have actually offered to keep the studio as a legacy brand. So if they are offering, if they were who were considered to be ones who will not respect the Hollywood system and what Warner Brothers has built, are considering doing that, then obviously I'm sure Skydance, Paramount Skydance will be more than willing to do same and offer even a better deal, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of how they would want to run the studio for the purposes of making that happen. So yeah, the $40.4 billion in equity is the bulletproof, and with the termination fee also increased, it looks like they have actually caught the attention of Warner Brothers, because just before I ended up doing this story, Breaking Story broke, where where Warner Brothers have announced or made it public that they'll be willing to consider this offer. They'll be taking a look at this offer, and if it's something good, maybe they will go into negotiations further with Paramount. So let me know what you think with regards to this particular story. Do you think Larry Larry Ellison's personal guarantee to back this particular bid is going to lead them to succeed in winning over Warner Brothers to their turf? Or do you think, I mean, if they, or who do you think they own Warner Brothers eventually? Is it still going to be Netflix, or with this new bid that Paramount has standed in, they are surely going to win? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. And then finally, we move into our last story of the day, and that is an event that took place about 2 weeks ago. And the exciting thing about the event is that it saw the presence of heavy big wigs in the industry in Ghana. That is the Black Star Film industry, Black Star Films. And not just them, but also from the political side as well. We had the presence of Vice President Jane Naana, pardon me, I'm blanking out on the surname, Naana Opoku-Agyemang, who was present at the event to give a speech as well. And I felt like whatever that speech she gave was something really needed this time around. And let me bring up her image. Yeah. And perhaps this is the first time in history where we've had an officer, the highest of one of the highest officers, the second highest officer in the land, actually grace an occasion and actually giving such a poignant speech to the effect of challenging filmmakers in the industry or stakeholders in the industry, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, to see to it that we up our game and to be able to compete on a global stage in all regards, be it box office wise and as well as critically acclaimed or award contention events. So quickly, let's take a look as to some of the things that she said at the event. I know this is about 2 weeks ago, but I felt like what she said it's so relevant that it ought to be discussed here. So this is actually captured on the Joy Online website, and she made a call to all these people at the inaugural event, and I felt like what she said was very needed at such a time. So, sorry, I made a mistake. The name is actually Opoku-Agyemang. Pardon me. That is quite shameful of me to have done that. Pardon me, my Ghanaian folks. Pardon me for that. Let me just correct it. It's very. I mean, I'm quite ashamed for not. Ah, pardon me. Pardon me. This is shameful of me. So let me just correct the name. So it's Naana Opoku-Agyemang. Her Excellency Naana Opoku-Agyemang. Pardon me for that. So let's get back to the article briefly, and this is what, pardon me, this is what she had to say. So Prof. Opoku-Agyemang, okay, now let me come to where, okay, so addressing participants, the vice president encouraged especially young and emerging filmmakers to place greater emphasis on professionalism and quality rather than focusing solely on visibility and popularity. She stressed that African stories must be told with intention and depth if they are to compete meaningfully on the global stage, adding that authenticity and excellence remain key to international recognition. And I like what she said here so much. I like what she said here so much. And I'm saying this because you would understand that if you are in, or if you are an avid film lover, I'm sure you watch films, and you watch films from our part of the world, and you wonder whether we, I mean, not all African films, African films nowadays have vastly improved, but still, majority of those films are nothing to write home about, as some of those films indeed needs to be, taken serious. But unfortunately, some filmmakers have not sought to making sure that they tell the African story with such uh, depth and seriousness. And I like the fact that she has stressed on that fact that we need to approach it with professionalism and quality, because then on the global stage, a lot of people are upping their game from different countries. So Hollywood is not just the place of quality movies. You have the Koreans producing excellent quality movies. Asia is becoming a major force to contend with. Yes, Europe also has their own, but I feel like Africa has a long way to go, and in terms of professionalism and quality, which he has said, and rightly so. And unfortunately, most of the films, just as the vice president said, has been for just visibility and popularity's sake, not really to tell a good story. And granted, yes, granted, to tell a good story also comes with the need for investing heavily financially, of course, because with the finances you can build infrastructure, you can put, enforce certain policies to be done, and also see to it that the necessary data that is required to be collected to go a long way to help revise and improve the industry can be done. So yes, that indeed is the case. But I think regardless of whether you have a Hollywood budget or not, I think once you set out to tell a story, the fundamentals of how technically a story should be told should be adhered to with the strictest, highest professionalism and quality. And I think that is what she's stressing on. Regardless of whether you have the budget or not, once you decide to tell a story, tell it as best as you can as a technical expert. And then if you have the opportunity to have the finances to back it as well, I think the skies will be the limit. And I think that is what she is calling for. And this call was not just for the filmmakers as well, but she also called on investors as well to support the industry. And I think for her for her caliber of being the second highest officer in the land, to have come to speak on this platform, and also to see the stalwarts of people in governance be there to also lend their support, and even religion as well. it speaks to the fact that this event is, I mean, this particular address and event is one not to trifle with. And I'm glad that that is the case. And I'm hoping that all stakeholders involved in this industry would pay close attention to what she has said, and perhaps the dialogue should keep on going to see how best all of us, all of us that's stakeholders in the industry can position ourselves to see that if we do what we can, how can also government support, whether it's just merely or purely policy to support what we are doing. And I think I'm happy with this speech that it's been offered, but it means that we have a long way to go in what we can do on our own to make sure that the industry grows and become highly competitive, not just in Ghana, but in Africa for the world stage. Because soon enough, we should be able to release a film that goes to win an Oscar, that goes to break, you know. And yes, most of African films now are doing wonders on the world stage, be it at Cannes Festival and all that. But my call here, or my excitement for this speech, is not necessarily just to compete in these world events, but more so for for our own pride as a people, for our own um, um, sense of self-worth as a people, that we tell stories that are top-notch quality, that can rub shoulders with any film from anywhere around the world, whether technically or storytelling wise, and even how we market and distribute it as well. So I'm glad that you know, such heavyweights are lending their support to the film industry. I wouldn't say just for Ghana, because you had Refa saw brought together, you know, all manner of filmmakers from all over Africa, you know, and I'm excited that that was the case. So it is, this particular call is for the entirety of the African film industry, and my hope and prayer is that we will do our best to live up to the expectations that have been demanded of us by the Vice President, Her Excellency Jane Naana Opoku-Agyemang. So let me know what you think about this particular call. Do you think that indeed it is the right call in the right direction? And what kind of stories from African cinema do you think or believe have the greatest potential to find a massive global audience? Whatever your thoughts may be, can you leave it in the comment section below? And I must sincerely apologize that my internet has not been the best today. It has not really been the best today. I apologize for that. I think it's just the Christmas season that is putting a demand and a toll on the internet. Pardon me for that. I really sincerely apologize for that. Well, all too soon, I've come to an end of this episode of the Film Mandate. And thanks so much for joining me for this episode. I'll come your way, hopefully, with another exciting episode, exciting stories that will happen throughout this holiday season. And I hope you're going to enjoy your holiday season with friends and family, and you know, spend quality time with everyone. Anyway, till I come your way again, hopefully tomorrow. My name is Papa Otu, and this has been the Film Mandate. I'll see you soon.